They were meant to be a cruel joke. Elara and Lyra, 10-year-old twins, thrust onto a school stage for an audience expecting to laugh. But when their voices, astonishingly pure and resonant, filled the silence, mockery died. For Alistair Finch, a widower lost in grief, and his own daughter Nina's retreat into profound mutism, their song was more than a performance. It was the unexpected key unlocking a new path. This is the extraordinary story of how two forgotten girls and one broken man discovered that music could heal the deepest wounds and compose a future of improbable second chances. Now, let the full, unforgettable melody unfold. The whispers follow them like shadows, predicting failure. "They're a charity case," one stagehand muttered, just loud enough. "Two scrawny kids pushed out here for a laugh." But when Elara and Lyra, barely 10 years old, stepped into the lone spotlight, a hush didn't just fall, it deepened, carving a space in the noisy school auditorium. And as their voices, pure and unexpectedly resonant, filled that void, a quiet, broken man named Alistair Finch felt his world tilt on its axis, never to be the same. Before we dive into this journey of unexpected harmony, profound healing, and the brave second chances that can redefine a life, please make sure you're subscribed. Stories like these, where a single fragile note can mend the shattered pieces of a soul, are precious and rare. Now let me share with you the true unfolding of that unforgettable night and all that came before. The first snows had come unseasonably early to the Montana foothills that year. By late October, the wind, sharp as splintered ice, had already draped a stark white blanket over the rutted tracks and skeletal trees that clawed at the bruised twilight sky. Alistair Finch, a man whose own landscape felt perpetually winter-bound, gripped the steering wheel of his ancient Dodge Ram. The wipers fought a losing battle against the thick, swirling flakes, and the heater exhaled warm air with the same erratic inconsistency that defined his existence. This drive, from the timber mill back to his isolated cabin at the edge of Whisperwind Creek, was a ritual etched into his muscle memory. But today, something was different. A stillness so profound, it felt as if the very air held its breath, settled over the landscape. It was then, just beyond the frost-heaved curve near the derelict railway siding, that he saw it, a shipping container, rust-streaked and forlorn, its doors creaking ajar in the biting wind. Ordinarily, he'd have driven past, but a flicker of movement, a small, desperate hand slapping against the corrugated metal, jolted him. Alistair slammed the brakes. Gravel screamed under the tires as the truck slewed to a halt. Without a second thought, he threw open his door and plunged into the snow. Each gust was a physical blow, but he barely registered the cold. As he neared the container, a sound reached him, not speech, but a faint, cracked humming, a half-remembered lullaby sung through chattering teeth. He wrenched the door fully open, and the sight stole the air from his lungs. Curled against a mildewed tarp were two girls, twins, no older than 10. Their cheeks were raw with cold, lips a bruised blue. One looked up, her eyes wide, not with fear, but a strange, assessing calm. The other clutched a tattered paper bird, its wings damp and crumpled. "Please," the first one whispered, her voice thin as ice. "Don't tell them we're here." Alistair didn't waste time on questions. He shrugged off his heavy coat, wrapping it around their small, trembling forms. "We need to get you warm. Come on." They hesitated. "Are you going to call someone?" the braver one asked. "Maybe," he said, his voice rough but honest, as he lifted the lighter of the two into his arms. "But right now, I'm going to save your lives." Back at his cabin, the wood stove roared, chasing the chill from the air. Alistair placed mugs of steaming cocoa on the worn pine table. The girls, now swaddled in his daughter's outgrown clothes, huddled together under an old quilt. "What are your names?" he asked, his voice gentler than he'd intended. "Elara," said the bolder one, her gaze direct. "She's Lyra. We're twins, 10.5. A faint smile touched Alistair's lips. "That's very precise," Elara nodded. "Our Nana always said details matter." "Where is she now?" Alara's gaze dropped. "She went away. Aunt Carol was supposed to look after us, but she said if we cried one more time, she'd leave us by the highway." Alistair swallowed, a familiar ache tightening his chest. The past, with its cruel echoes, always found a way back. He'd heard too many such stories. Some flickered with hope. Most ended in bleak headlines. He rose and walked down the short hallway, knocking softly on a closed door. "Nina?" he called. "You okay in there, sweet pea?" Silence. There was almost always silence. Nina, his 14-year-old daughter, hadn't spoken, not truly spoken, in nearly 3 years. Not since the day she'd collapsed on her middle school stage, the spotlight a cruel accuser, the whispers of the crowd a crushing weight. Selective mutism, they'd called it. She'd become a whisper herself, a pale ghost haunting the corners of their home. Her communication reduced to fleeting glances and hesitant gestures. Alistair had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that bringing these lost girls into their quiet, wounded house, even for a night, might stir something in Nina. Not a miracle, just a flicker, a sign. Back in the living room, Lyra hummed, a soft, aimless melody as she sipped her cocoa. It was almost unconsciously done, yet strangely soothing. Elara closed her eyes, then, her voice equally soft, joined in. 2 imperfect, untrained voices, weaving together like ancient, forgotten harmonies, rediscovering each other. From down the hallway, a door creaked. Nina appeared, barefoot in an oversized sweatshirt, her dark hair veiling her face. Her eyes, wide and haunted, fixed on the twins. She didn't speak, but she stood there, and she listened. Alistair froze, watching his daughter with a kind of breathless awe. She hadn't looked at a stranger, not directly, in months. Now she stood rooted, her eyes glistening with something that might have been memory, or perhaps a desperate, unvoiced longing. Elara smiled at her. "Hi, you can sit with us if you want." Nina didn't move, but she didn't retreat. She leaned against the doorframe, her head tilted, as if trying to catch a melody she hadn't dared to remember. That night, after the girls had fallen asleep on the pull-out sofa, Alistair sat alone in the kitchen, an untouched mug of coffee growing cold. The air smelled of wood smoke and something faintly sweet, like the cinnamon toast his wife used to make. His gaze drifted to the small, dust-covered wooden box on the shelf, an old reel-to-reel recorder. Inside were the last recordings his wife, Sarah, had made with Nina before the accident that took Sarah's life. Lullabies, giggles, whispered harmonies. They hadn't been played in 3 years, just like the upright piano in the corner, draped with a sheet, just like the man who once believed music held the power to heal. But something about Elara and Lyra, their raw, untutored melodies, their quiet resilience, it reminded him of those earlier days. The simple truth of a melody, the untamed strength in unpolished voices. Alistair reached for the box. For the first time in years, he opened it. The next morning arrived softly, a pale gray light filtering through the frost-etched windows, the only sound the groan of wood settling in the cold. Alistair moved first, muscle memory guiding him to the coffee pot. The quiet of the cabin was a familiar companion, but today it held 3 extra gentle breaths. The twins were still asleep, limbs entwined like young saplings. He watched them, a strange, unfamiliar warmth stirring within him, soft as a newly discovered chord on a long-neglected guitar. He didn't try to name it. Nina was already at the kitchen table when he returned with 2 mugs of cocoa. She'd made no sound. She sat, back straight, hands clasped, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from her own untouched cup. Her long, dark hair was a curtain shielding her expression. Alistair sat opposite her, their silent dance. He offered presence. She, on rare occasions, offered a flicker of acknowledgement. "You okay with them staying a bit?" he asked, his voice low. Nina didn't respond, but her fingers tightened slightly around her mug. Yes, he nodded. "Good. I think they need it. And maybe we do too." She looked up then, just for a heartbeat, and he saw it. The same eyes that used to dance when Sarah sang to her on the porch, long before the silence took root. Later, Elara and Lyra woke, sleepy but smiling. They helped set the table, their chatter and giggles over the temperamental toaster, a bright, unfamiliar sound in the usually somber house. Nina watched from the hallway, a shadow half hidden. Lyra spotted her. "We saved you the blue plate. It's the only one without a chip." Nina hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. She took the plate and sat down. Alistair held his breath. 3 girls, 1 table. No words from Nina, but something far richer. Shared space, tentative smiles, a fragile sense of belonging. The snow continued to fall. School was canceled. The roads were impassable. The house, for once, was not silent. Alistair unearthed old board games, and the girls argued good-naturedly over forgotten rules. Nina didn't speak, but when Elara accidentally sent the Monopoly money flying, it was Nina who knelt to help gather the scattered bills. A ghost of a smile shared between them. After dinner, the twins began to hum again, soft, spontaneous tunes. Nina stood nearby, watching. Something in her posture shifted. Shoulders relaxing, head tilting, like a flower seeking light. Then it happened. A single, perfect note escaped her lips. So soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. Alistair froze mid-step in the kitchen. He turned, saying nothing. Elara noticed, her eyes wide. "You're singing," she said, her voice gentle. Nina blinked, then bolted. Alistair found her in the garage, curled in the back of the old station wagon, their breath fogging the cold air. He didn't open the door immediately. "I heard you," he said finally, his hand on the frosted handle. "It was beautiful." Silence. "You don't have to be afraid of your own voice, Nina. Not here." A pause then, so quiet, he almost missed it. "I wasn't afraid." Her voice was barely a breath. I forgot I could." They sat in the cold, shared stillness, speaking volumes. He used to think some grand piece of music would be her salvation. Now he understood. It wasn't the music itself, but being truly heard. That night, after the twins slept, Alistair retrieved the old guitar case from the attic. Dust motes danced in the lamplight as he opened it, revealing the worn, honey-colored wood of the instrument he hadn't touched in a decade. Nina stood in the doorway, her eyes wide. "You remember this?" he asked softly. She nodded. He sat, tuned the strings slowly, reverently. The wood creaked, but the sound, when he finally strummed a chord, was warm, full, achingly alive. "I'm thinking," he said, "maybe we can try something again." Nina stepped closer. "Not for a performance," he added quickly. "Not for anyone else, just for us." She looked down, then, as if trusting the music more than her own voice, she whispered, "Okay." As the fire burned to embers, Alistair played the first chords of an old folk song, one Sarah used to hum. Nina listened, then, quiet as falling snow, she began to hum a harmony. Elara and Lyra, drawn by the sound, crept back in. 4 voices, 1 guitar. Unplanned, unpracticed. In that moment, the silence wasn't broken. It was transformed. The quiet that followed was holy. A warm, golden stillness, as if the house itself held its breath, grateful for the return of a sound it thought lost forever. Alistair sat, fingers resting on the strings. Nina, head down, continued her soft hum, each note a thread stitching her back to the world. Elara and Lyra, cross-legged, swayed, absorbing every vibration. For the first time in years, Alistair didn't feel like a man adrift in ruins. He felt like he was building something. The following days melted one into the next, slow and sweet. With roads still treacherous, the girls remained. Mornings were oatmeal and card games, afternoons snow forts and expeditions to the creek. But evenings were when the tentative magic solidified. They didn't call it practice. They simply sang, old hymns, made-up melodies, harmonies only they understood. And Nina, his precious Nina, sang. She still spoke little during the day, still flinched from direct gazes, but when the music began, she bloomed. Alistair kept the old reel-to-reel recorder running, discreetly placed on the mantel, not for posterity, but as proof. Proof the light was real. One Thursday, Elara looked up from a drawing. "Do you think we could sing at the school talent show?" Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean on a stage?" "Yeah," Elara said matter-of-fact. "We've got 3 songs now. That one Nina started the other night? That one's good." Nina's fingers tightened around her cocoa mug. Alistair set his guitar down. "I'm not sure that's a great idea." "Why not?" Elara pressed. "We're not scared." He looked at them, their fierce, unbroken innocence. That was the problem. He knew how easily the world could shatter it. "Because school talent shows can be tricky," he said carefully. "People sometimes laugh when they don't understand something beautiful. And that kind of laugh, it cuts deeper than silence." Nina nodded, her eyes shadowed. She knew that laugh, but Elara was undeterred. "Then maybe it's time someone gave them something they had to understand." The next morning, a flyer was tacked to the community notice board by the post office. Winter Talent Showcase. One night only. Alistair stood in the biting wind, the paper fluttering like a dare. His hand hovered before he tore off a registration tab. Back home, the girls had created a mock stage. Pillows for footlights, a broom for a mic stand. Nina was at the old piano, shyly finding chords, while Elara and Lyra experimented with harmonies, their laughter echoing. That evening, Alistair opened his old music journal, pages filled with half-formed songs from a lifetime ago. He found a line. "Some voices don't need to rise. They just need to reach." He tapped his pen, then added, "Tonight, they reached me." Friday came. The girls submitted their names. No turning back. Rehearsal that night hit a snag. Midway through a song, the piano emitted a jarring clang. Nina hit the key again. The note wavered, dead. Panic flickered in her eyes. "Broken hammer," Alistair diagnosed, prying open the lid. "Probably from last year's deep freeze. I'll see if I can fix it, but we don't have time," Nina whispered, her voice tight. Alistair stood, then walked to the back room. He returned with the Taylor guitar, its wood gleaming. The girls fell silent. "You know," he said slowly, "your harmonies, they'd sound even better with something warmer underneath. Something simpler. Like this." He strummed a chord, low and smooth, filling the room like candlelight. "We're changing the arrangement?" Lyra asked. Alistair smiled. "We're not changing. We're evolving." They spent the rest of the evening rearranging, not with sheet music, but with ears, hearts, and instinct. Elara and Lyra adapted instantly. Nina, seated beside her father, hummed her part, gradually layering it with newfound confidence. By midnight they had something new, not polished, not perfect, but breathtakingly alive. As they packed up, Elara asked, "Do you think they'll hear us, really hear us?" Alistair paused. "If they're ready," he replied, "they'll listen." The auditorium was a relic, with creaky wooden floors and faded velvet curtains. To Elara, Lyra, and Nina, it loomed like a mountain. Alistair sat in the front row. Behind the curtain, the girls peeked through a tier. Their act was listed last. Unnamed trio. "No one knows it's us," Elara murmured. "Good," Lyra whispered, shifting. "Let them laugh before we sing. It'll hit harder." Nina said nothing, hands clasped, eyes on her shoes. But she was there, standing, waiting. That in itself was a victory. The hours before had been brutal. A teacher's careless. "Hope the girls don't freeze up." That kind of thing leaves a mark. Stairs in the hallway. Someone had scrawled "Twin Charity Act" in marker on a practice room door. Alistair had seen it, wiped it off, the old fury stirring, the same fury that had silenced his music for years. During their final living room rehearsal, Alistair's finger had slipped a sour note. He'd cursed softly. "You okay?" Elara had asked. "Fine," he'd lied. Nina had looked at him then, gently touching his arm. He'd turned, surprised. "I can start it," she'd whispered. The first note. She'd nodded. In that moment, he realized she wasn't just healing, she was leading. Backstage, the MC's voice boomed. "Next up, a special performance from 3 brave young ladies. Please welcome our surprise trio." Polite, scattered applause. Alistair walked on stage first, guitar slung low, his worn flannel a quiet statement. Then Elara and Lyra, hand in hand, heads high. And finally, Nina. Slight, quiet, but upright, a sapling refusing to bend. Gas rippled through the audience. Some recognized them, others just stared. The girls found center stage. Alistair sat to the side, strummed a soft open chord. Nina closed her eyes and sang. Her voice, trembling at first, like a violin finding its breath, grew steadier, warmer. Elara joined on the next line, their voices brushing like feathers. Lyra entered last, her harmony a delicate foundation. Alistair watched, his guitar weaving a raw, comforting melody beneath them. The sound like wind through pines. The restless audience stilled. Some leaned forward, some cried. The final chorus swelled, not with volume, but with grace. Nina's voice floated. Elara held the center. Lyra whispered the undercurrent. 3 voices, 1 sound. Not polished, but perfect. The last note faded. Silence. A long, suspended moment. Then, a woman in the second row stood. Then a boy in the back. Then a teacher. Then the entire auditorium rose, the applause not wild, but reverent. Elara squeezed Lyra's hand. Nina looked out, blinking fast. Alistair smiled at them, a true, deep smile, and bowed his head over his guitar. Later, a boy who'd once laughed when Nina flinched at the school bell approached her, awkwardly holding out a wrapped candy. "For you," he mumbled. I'm sorry." Nina took it, nodding. Outside, the wind was brisk, clean. In the truck, no one spoke. The radio was off. But in Alistair's chest, there was music. Not a song. A beginning. Back at the cabin, Elara and Lyra fell asleep quickly. Alistair stood at Nina's door. She sat on her bed, earbuds in, replaying a recording of their performance on his phone. She looked up, pulled out 1 bud. "Can we record it tomorrow?" He blinked. "Record what?" Nina tilted her head. "Our album." She smiled. 3 days later, a photo of the trio appeared in the local paper. 3 voices, 1 moment. Talent show brings unexpected tears. A small article, but it meant everything. Alistair pinned it above the kitchen sink. Proof. The following week, Ms. Anya Sharma, the school's music teacher, someone Alistair had known in a distant pre-grief life, stopped by. "I wanted to ask," she said, handing him a flyer, "would the girls consider submitting a performance for the district showcase in Helena next month? It's juried. Real stage, real audience, real scouts." Alistair hesitated. The last performance was a miracle. Delicate. This was bigger, riskier. That evening he showed them the flyer. Voices of Tomorrow State Youth Arts Showcase. So, we'd be competing? Elara asked. More like being featured, Alistair clarified. By people who can judge, Nina said softly. We don't have to, he said gently. Nina paused. But what if there's a girl out there, like me, and she's waiting for someone to sing first? Elara squeezed her hand. Alistair exhaled. Then we'd better give her a song worth hearing. They worked harder than ever, choosing a piece that blended Nina's gentle strength with Elara's brightness and Lyra's subtle depth. Alistair helped transpose it for guitar, adding a quiet storm of emotion. They practiced in the garage, the echo room. Nina started a journal, filling it with lyrics, melodic fragments. Then the letter arrived from the school superintendent, addressed to Alistair. Non-enrolled students are not eligible to perform at district events. The Trio Act does not meet criteria for submission. He didn't tell the girls immediately. That night he called Anya. She knew, he said quietly. Whoever this administrator is, she knew, and someone fed it to her. I'm so sorry, Alistair. I did, he said bitterly. I've seen how fast people change their tune when something real starts to shine. You're not going to let this stop them, are you? He looked at the recorder. Number. But I need to be smart about how we fight this. The next day he read them the letter. Nina didn't cry. Elara did quietly. Lyra's jaw tightened. So what? We just disappear again? No, Alistair said. We record it anyway. We send it. If they throw it away, that's their choice. But they're going to hear it. He turned to Nina. And if you want to write something new, something that says what you want them to hear, now's the time. Nina looked up, her eyes clear. She fetched her notebook. The title on the front page read, Whispers to a Roar. The melody was tentative at first, then gained strength. Alistair sat beside Nina, guitar in his lap, as she traced each word before letting it become sound. Elara and Lyra listened, rapt. A song for the ones who don't speak loud but carry thunder in their hearts. Nina's voice trembled on thunder, but she didn't stop. The song wasn't just music, it was testimony. The cabin transformed. The kitchen for vocal warm-ups. The garage now draped with blankets for acoustics. Alistair set up his old condenser mic. The night before their final take, Nina was at the piano. A sharp clack, the middle C hammer stuck. Dead. Nina's hands trembled. I can't play without it. The piano was her armor. Alistair crouched. I'll fix it. He worked all night by lantern light, with tweezers, glue, and a prayer. At dawn, he pressed middle C. It sang. Not perfectly, but true. When the girls woke, Nina sat at the piano, touched the key. It responded. She looked at her father, a small nod passing between them. Alistair stepped back. Nina began the intro. To the girl in the back who won't raise her hand. To the boy in the hall with silence like sand. Their harmonies were tighter than ever. Then Nina, the chorus. We were made for music, even if we never make a sound. We were made for more than fading. We were made to be found. The guitar, warm and supportive. When the final note faded, Alistair hit stop on the recorder, heart pounding. This was it. He uploaded the file to a private link, typed out the submission. Group name, The Whispering Three. Message to the jury. We know we don't meet your rules, but we hope we meet your hearts. If there's room for three girls who learn to sing in the cracks of the world, then maybe this song is for you too. He clicked Submit. The rejection came indirectly. In the grocery store, Alistair heard it. Must be easy using pity to get on stage, sneered a man named Darryl Crane, father of a boy from Nina's old class. Manipulative, parading those poor twins, and your situation. Alistair clenched his jaw. They worked hard. They earned every second. Well, don't expect everyone to clap just because you brought a sad story with a melody. Alistair didn't reply. Some songs weren't meant for men like Daryl. March arrived, a great pause. But the song lingered. Nina played it daily. The twins hummed it constantly. Anya stopped by again, holding a small wrapped parcel. Inside, a vintage capo and a handwritten chord chart in Sarah's script. Title, For Nina, Someday. The lullaby they never finished. I thought it was lost, Alistair murmured. It was in the school's music closet, Anya said. Nina entered, saw the paper, traced the letters. Can we play it? They spent hours on the living room floor, Alistair piecing together the chords. It started soft, like a heartbeat. Nina sang the first line. Elara and Lyra joined. By the bridge, Alistair's fingers moved as if they'd never stopped. Anya stood in the doorway, hand over her mouth, listening as if for the first time. The next morning, Alistair unearthed his old performance guitar, the one Sarah had given him. He restrung it, oiled it, polished it. Let's do this right this time. He gathered the girls. This is the first guitar I ever owned. Your mother gave it to me. Nina stepped forward. I think it's time we bring it back. Is this for the next performance? Elara whispered. No, Alistair said. It's for us. No stage, no judges. Just a recording. A full session. We'll release it online. Free. If the world hears it, good. But if only one kid out there finds it and realizes their voice matters, that's enough. Nina nodded. It's more than enough. The garage became their studio. Quilts on walls, borrowed mixing board, string lights. They recorded everything. The final track was the lullaby, Sarah's unfinished song, now carried by Nina's voice. When it ended, Alistair looked at Anya, who sat in, offering tea and quiet support. He whispered, Welcome back. To the music, to Sarah's memory, to himself. That night, he uploaded the album. The Whispering 3. Songs for the ones who listen. Description. For those told they were too quiet to matter. For those who waited to be heard. Here we are. By sunrise, comments appeared. A school nurse in Ohio. A father in Vermont. A girl in Oregon. I played the lullaby on loop while drawing stars. The world was listening. The call came from the Whitmore Civic Center in Helena. Alistair felt out of place in the polished lobby. Nina clutched her lyric notebook. Elara and Lyra flanked her, part awe, part defense. They weren't on the roster, but a cancellation opened a 10-minute slot during the youth art exhibition. Anya, braver than any of them, had pushed. Fine, the director had said. One song, no announcement, no introduction. Backstage, among other performers, they were anonymous. Armor. Alistair tuned his guitar. Cold? He asked Nina gently. She shook her head. Number just awake. Good. A tech nodded. You're up, curtain in 30. Lights dimmed. Elara stepped out, then Lyra. Nina last, walking like the floor finally agreed to carry her. Alistair sat stage left. They took their positions. Nina closed her eyes. The first note, Maisie's voice. A story told to someone half asleep. Elara joined, bright, supportive. Lyra's alto, a gentle foundation. They didn't try to impress. They just were. The room shifted. Chatter faded. Phones lowered. At the bridge, Nina stepped forward slightly. We are not the echoes of someone else's sound. We are the music no one saw coming. And we are still loud, even now. The final chorus climbed, not in volume, but in courage. The last note fell. Absolute, sacred silence. Alistair met her gaze, no longer the fragile girl. They felt you, he said. That's more than hearing. That's remembering. Nina nodded, then, unexpectedly, hugged him. Tight, unshaking. The first time in years. Music hadn't just healed his daughter. It had healed him. Then the room erupted. Standing, wiping tears, shared disbelief. Backstage, quiet strangers approached. "Thank you." That was my daughter's story. A radio host asked for a copy. An arts nonprofit for performance for children with special needs. Alistair said yes. Walking to the truck, the wind was warmer. Spring hinted. Anya walked with Alistair. "You know, if she ever wants to study music, scholarships, mentors..." He nodded. "I'll let her decide. But thank you. She's already more than ready." At the truck, Nina looked up. "Do they really hear us?" Alistair met her gaze, no longer the fragile girl. "They felt you," he said. "That's more than hearing. That's remembering." Nina nodded, then unexpectedly hugged him, tight, unshaking. The first time in years. Music hadn't just healed his daughter, it had healed him. Again. The word, breathed by Nina, changed everything. It was an early April Sunday. The girls and Anya were on the porch sketching a flyer for a local shelter benefit. Nina sat by the screen door, notebook on her knees. Alistair was inside, playing the song from the Civic Center. He finished, turned to her. "Think we should add a bridge?" Nina looked up. Again. He stared. "What?" She sat straighter. "Play it. Again. Not fear, desire." He grinned. "Yes, ma'am." He played. This time she sang with him. That evening, Nina said, "I want to record a message." "For who?" Laura blinked. "For everyone." They set up the recorder. Dim lights, dying fire. Nina took a breath. "Hi, my name is Nina Finch. I used to think silence was safer. But then someone sang near me, and I remembered. So if you're listening, and you're quiet like I was, you're not broken. You're just waiting. And when you're ready, we'll hear you." She looked at her father. "Okay." Alistair, hand-shaking, pressed stop. Perfect. They uploaded it. By morning, it spread. A podcast host called it the most important 90 seconds of the year. Emails poured in. One from Avery in Montana. "My mom passed away. I haven't spoken. I played your song for my dog. Then I sang it with him. I think you helped me speak again, too." Nina pinned it to her wall next to Sarah's photo. They began the Echo Tour. Community centers, schools, rehabs. Hastings, Nebraska. Peeling paint, mismatched chairs. Middle schoolers, veterans, single mothers. Nina, Elara, Lyra on a makeshift stage. Alistair behind them. When they sang Whispers to a Roar, the room transformed. A mother closed her eyes. A teen near the exit stayed. An elderly man nodded, lips moving. The applause was reverent. People connected. A Vietnam vet. That slow bridge reminded me of letters my wife wrote. "Been gone 15 years. Don't usually cry. Today I did." A girl shyly handed Nina a note. "Sometimes I don't talk because people don't wait long enough. But I think you would." Nina pressed it to her chest. "Always. 7 towns, each more humble. Stillness, then tears, then hope." Nina blossomed, introducing songs, her voice clear, certain. At a women's recovery center, a woman spoke. "Whoever taught you to sing like that? They gave the world back to you, and you gave it to us." Nina hugged her. The woman told Anya, "That kid, bravest thing I've ever seen." Driving back one rainy evening, Alistair realized the tour wasn't just giving back. He needed it too. Each performance stitched him together. Sarah's presence felt strong. Nina had become a bridge. Home, mail, voicemails, a radio station, a Missouri school district, and Caroline. From the Whitmore Civic Center, now with the State Board of Cultural Affairs. "We'd like to invite the Whispering Three to headline the Youth Voices Gala in June. No auditions, just bring the music." Alistair read it twice, looked at the girls. Nina humming, Elara and Lyra planning, Anya watching, knowing the value of every second. He smiled. That night, Nina handed him new lyrics. I wrote a duet for you and me. First line, I found my voice in the space between your silence. He looked at her, eyes shining. Will you sing it with me? Nina picked up the guitar, strummed the first chord. The theater in Helena for the gala was grand. Brushed steel, soft oak, real stage lights. The Whispering Three, headlining. Alistair in the wings, guitar in hand. Not for fame, but for his daughter, his second chance. Nina, Elara, Lyra, her sisters in spirit. No countdown. The program read, The Voice We Keep. A closing performance by the Whispering Three. Nina looked at her father. He nodded. She nodded. She sang. A song about memory, about voices lost and found, harmonies woven like linen. The crowd leaned in. Sawyer played beneath them, holding the pulse of something sacred. At the bridge, Nina stepped forward. I used to think my silence meant I was broken. Now I know it was just waiting to be music. Lights dimmed. The last note lingered. Stillness. Then, a standing ovation. Quiet as distant thunder. Reverent, earned. Backstage, giggles and granola bars. If that wasn't the top of the mountain? Elara sighed. Nina, smiling, handed Alistair a sealed envelope. For you. Not now. He pocketed it. Summer arrived. Cicadas, cut grass. Nina volunteered at music camp, helping kids write songs. Elara and Lyra's YouTube channel grew. Not for numbers, but for comments like, My sister sang with me for the first time. Alistair built a small studio in the shed. For moments. One Sunday, Nina found him on the porch, the unopened envelope in his lap. Today's the day, she asked. He nodded. Inside, Nina's careful hand. Dear Dad, I don't remember the first time you sang to me, but I remember the first time you stopped. Grief is heavy, silence is loud, but you waited. And when I finally sang again, you didn't rush. You just listened. That saved me. My voice exists because of yours. And that's the voice I'll keep. Love, Nina. Alistair held the letter. Nina rested her head on his shoulder. That evening, Elara, Lyra, Nina, Anya, Alistair. Living room, firelight. They sang softly. No audience. Just each other. The last line of Sarah's lullaby. Even in the quiet, I'll be singing for you. No grand stage. Just a family, finding its way back to sound. A girl, once silent, now using her voice not to be heard, but to heal. Sometimes, the voices we almost never hear are the ones that stay with us the longest. If this story resonated deep within your heart, we'd be truly honored to know where in this wide world you're watching from. Please, leave us a comment below. Your words, your presence, mean more than you can imagine. And if you wish to journey with us through more tales like this one, stories of quiet miracles, brave second chances, and the kind of love that mends the soul, feel free to subscribe. We'll be right here, waiting to share the next one with you. Thank you genuinely for spending your precious time with us today.